Happy Pride Month! In a world where people who deviate from the cishet standards of society are demonized and legislated against, it is very important to uplift queer stories. So, I wanted to share with y'all a handful of my favorite queer anime and manga. My main list contains stories where the queer identities are explicitly canon. This video will be spoiler-free and more of a recommendation style, so no worries if you haven't heard of anything I'm talking about here. You won't feel like you've had the whole thing ruined for you. Our Dreams at Dusk is a short 4-volume series about a boy who finds community amongst other LGBT people after he is forcibly outed at school. The series hits most of the mainstream LGBT identities. I'm talking identities that even the most uninformed person has likely heard of. Gay men, lesbians, transgender characters, bisexual characters, even asexual characters, and of course gender non-conforming characters as well. It's a cool short series that gives the reader glimpses into the highs and lows of queer lives. This series also focuses on building community and how connecting with others is a very vital part in accepting oneself. In a world where queer identities are othered and seen as taboo, it is life-changing to find a group of people who not only accept you for who you are, but can relate to your lived experiences. People who are going through similar things and can even help you navigate certain things that you may be going through. The story starts with the main character wanting to end his own life due to being outed and bullied at school, and just meeting this community was enough to save his life, altering the course of his future for the better and even extending beyond him to others in his life. It's a pretty feel-good story for the most part, despite its gloomy start, and it's one of those when I say general LGBT manga, I just mean it has a very diverse cast. It's not honing in on one specific experience, and I think that's a very vital tool in not only understanding yourself, but understanding those around you, understanding others within the queer community, because while we all are individuals with very different lives, there are certain aspects of our, existences that are very universal. And this goes for anyone, not just people within the LGBT community. But there is something to be said about reading stories about people who are not identical to you. Getting to know the experiences and just some ins and outs of others that you may not directly relate to just helps build empathy, and it also creates some sort of baseline understanding. While you may not identify with one of the identities explored in this manga, you can still get a glimpse of it and maybe gain a bit more of an understanding towards people who identify such a way. And if you do identify with identities in this manga, it's just nice to see representation, to know that there are people who live lives similar to yours and have struggles similar to yours, and it just makes the world feel a lot less lonely. And that's kind of the core theme of this manga as well, with the building community and just not being alone. And I think that's beautiful. Boys Run the Riot is actually about a group of teenagers starting a streetwear company and bonding over their love of art and fashion. But it also centers the experiences of the main character, who is a transgender man, and his struggles with gender dysphoria, finding acceptance, and coming out before he's actually ready to come out. This manga gets up close and personal with the feelings of dysphoria and the pain that a trans person can feel, and the social ostracization that comes with being trans. While it's got an overall hopeful tone, Boys Run the Riot does showcase how devastating it is to find out people don't respect you because of your identity, and that people may only be humoring you because they have ulterior motives and don't actually see you for who you are. It's rough, but it's something many trans people have to deal with, and quite frankly, that misunderstanding of ulterior motives and people not respecting you for who you are can be a universal experience that connects all of us. It's an honest and authentic conversation about being a trans man, written by a trans man, and also translated and localized in English by a transgender team. While I'm not a man myself, the discussion of gender dysphoria was one that I could relate to. There is also a side character who discovers their non-binary identity, and watching them struggle to find a place in the gender binary system and how neither man nor woman felt right was something that I could resonate with. Although this is a very minor aspect of the story, it was still nice to see it explored. The main plot of working together to build connections with unlikely friends and following their dreams is one that I would say was done pretty well. I won't tell y'all the specifics, but I will say it was nice to see a story about a group of kids building a dream together that was both hopeful and realistic. No one was out here living some sort of power fantasy, and while I do appreciate a good fantasy, sometimes it is nice to see what it would be like to try to achieve certain goals in a more, based in reality story. And even if you may not resonate with the transness present in the story, it's a pretty good read and can help someone who may not identify as trans understand more what it feels like and maybe gain a little bit more empathy for those of us who might struggle with dysphoria or just not being a cisgendered person. And also, who doesn't love a good inspiring story of follow your dreams even if it's hard? Because that is basically the premise, the whole moral of Boys Run the Riot. Is Love the Answer is a coming-of-age one-shot story about a girl who enters college and discovers that there is a name for this lack of sexual attraction she feels. And that's not something that's wrong with her. She's not some alien or a broken person. It is very much a baby's first introduction to asexuality, but that's an important step in learning about the A spectrum and possibly getting answers for those who are on the spectrum. Asexuality is one of those identities that a lot of people either just don't know about or get a lot of misinformation spread about it. There is no right way to be asexual, and the only qualifier is to experience little to no sexual attraction to real people. Asexuality is a spectrum with more specific ways of being asexual along the way. You have the, standard asexual that experiences no sexual attraction. That's what most people think of. But then you also have identities like demisexual, where there is no physical attraction felt until an emotional bond has been built. This is not the same as waiting to be intimate until you know someone a bit better, and it's more like not finding someone hot at all until you've gotten to know them. And this is different because people who do feel sexual attraction in what's deemed a normal way, or otherwise allosexual, will still be able to find someone hot without getting to know them. I mean, celebrity crushes literally exist. I feel like that kind of explains it pretty well. That's the distinction. Anyway, all of this to say, it is nice to see stories exploring the beginning stages of learning about asexuality and explaining it in a way where anyone could understand. Not just people who have been identifying as asexual for over a decade, or those who've been online for several years already learning about it. If I can talk as an asexual person for a moment, in a world that places so much emphasis on romance and sexuality, it is very easy to feel broken and alone when you don't experience that kind of attraction. When it's not something you can relate to but is seen as a basic human thing. When you don't feel something that is often considered a base human desire, it is very easy to feel alienated from others, and like there is something broken and wrong with you. Dating as an asexual is hard too, since a lot of people do value physical intimacy and sex and would rather not date someone who does not experience sexual attraction. And I'm not saying they're in the wrong for that. Everyone is entitled to have their preferences, and that is something that should be discussed when you are starting a new relationship. It's just isolating and incredibly lonely to watch as the world celebrates connecting with others in a way that is difficult for you. Reading stories about other asexual people reminds us that we're not sick or broken, and that there is a beautiful future out there, even if it may not be the one that we had imagined as kids. So even if it is a very baby's first ace story, Is Love the Answer reminds us all that there is community and there are people out there just like us. And finding that community and learning she's not alone is exactly what Is Love the Answer is all about. The Guy She Was Into Wasn't a Guy at All is a webcomic following two high school girls as they navigate a misunderstanding turned beautiful friendship and eventual romantic relationship. The basic premise being that the fashionable Hikaru, Aya, is secretly into Western rock music, and like dad rock at that, and drops by a local record shop, where she sees this really cute alternative guy working behind the counter and develops a fangirl crush. Come to find out, as the title suggests, the cute guy isn't actually a guy. Instead, it's her shy classmate. Throughout their relationship, Aya learns to be more open about her interests, and Mitsuki, the other girl, learns to come out of her shell at school. It's just a silly, cute romance story about two girls and their shared love of music. There's only 3 volumes out on this one, with the third scheduled to release in English in late October of 2025, but there are 127 chapters that the creator has posted online. I think it's primarily posted to Twitter. So there's plenty of content to look forward to. Also, yeah, this is the Green Yuri manga that everyone has been talking about for the past year, and it is that good. The art? Delicious. And the characters are really lovable. Even the adult side characters are very intriguing and pretty fun, which I think is something that cannot be said for most high school centered stories. While the story does focus on things like building good communication within relationships, coming to terms with attraction and sexuality, and the difficulties of wanting to fit in or conform, the story overall, as far as I have read, has been pretty lighthearted and humorous. The Guy She Was Into Wasn't a Guy at All is a cute slice-of-life romance, and it is fun to see the side characters root for the main couple, especially when their friendship is still developing. It's like any other lighthearted romance story, it just so happens that the main couple are two girls. As far as I've read, it's very casual about being a lesbian story, and I can really appreciate that. Oftentimes in GL or BL series, there are pivotal conflicts in one of the characters having to overcome internalized homophobia. But as far as I can tell, that's not a hurdle this series seeks to handle, and that's nice. We have plenty of stories like that already. The conflict focuses more on the two girls being polar opposites in personality. One shy, one more outgoing. I feel like this whole opposites attract trope is pretty common, but boy is it fun to indulge in. Especially when there is common ground and the opposites realize they may not be all that different. They're just two girls, with a passion for American dad rock and budding love for one another. Okay, so, compared to the rest of the list, Revolutionary Girl Utena is a bit different. The main themes being about abuse, grooming, and toxic relationships. And I will say right here, right now, if you have not heard of this anime, and you are sensitive to depictions of abuse, no matter how abstract, please look up a list of content warnings. There are pretty exhaustive lists here and there, even stating the episodes, so you are not going to be caught off guard. Revolutionary Girl Utena follows 14-year-old Utena, a gender non-conforming tomboyish girl, in her search for her prince. She's got this childish fantasy about finding the boy who helped her out of her grief when she was younger, and in order to find that prince, she herself has become somewhat of a prince. Princely women is a fairly common trope in anime and manga, especially shoujo series, and it's a trope that lends very well to queer readings. Women who are masculine in appearance and or personality that become the subject of adoration amongst her fellow peers. Other women who fangirl and have little crushes on these princely women. These are also women who are oftentimes put into the role of a man with her interactions with others. But these women are still women, or at least identify as women still. While can be pretty good canvases for trans and non-binary headcanons, most of the time they are still pretty accepting of the label of woman. Utena falls right in line with this trope, but she's also called out and teased for being a girl boy. Her more masculine tendencies are shamed by teachers and others around her who seek to make her conform. There's even a forced feminization arc at one point pretty early on. Utena hits on some of the more negative experiences gender non-conforming people have to go through. While gender nonconforming is an expression style, not an identity, there is often an overlap between a nonconforming expression of gender and queer identities. So many LGBT viewers resonate with this aspect of Utena. However, the real reason that Utena is on my list of favorite LGBT anime and manga is for its depictions of sapphic desire and relationships. Anyone who has heard of this anime has probably heard it's very gay. And they're right. The, I guess, more explicit depiction is Juri, a side character who is seen explicitly yearning romantically for one of her female classmates. It's kind of her entire character arc, and the whole, like, messy lesbian toxic situationship is a pivotal plot point. So, it's very in your face, kind of. But the two main characters, Utena and Anthy, are also put in a sapphic dynamic as well. Utena wins a duel, and Anthy becomes her bride. Throughout the show, the two grow close and develop a romantic bond. It's never explicitly stated that they get together in the original show, but in the movie, they kiss. And I won't specify what happens, but I will say there is a certain bit of imagery used in Utena that's used to represent physical intimacy, and that does come up for Utena and Anthy in the movie as well. So, it's as explicitly queer as you can get without Utena and Anthy looking in the camera and telling us they're gay. The series doesn't treat queer relationships as something superficial that a lot of, like, early shoujo or just, like, series that kind of touch on princely women tend to do, and they really focus on the connections between the characters. Utena is also credited as going on to influence other popular queer works as well, like Madoka Magica, Steven Universe, Witch from Mercury, which is the canonically lesbian Gundam series, and She-Ra for some examples. This is one of my favorite animes of all time, and maybe one day I will make a more in-depth video about it, but the long and short of it is Utena's just good. Utena is a Sleeping Beauty-esque tale steeped in surrealism that explores cycles of abuse and how to break out of it, revolutionizing the lives of those stuck in these cycles. It's one of those classic anime from the 90s that has influenced, inspired, and informed many of the anime that has come after it, and also kind of shaped the anime community, at least in regards to girls lovers and anyone who's been into anime long enough to either have been around when the show was initially airing, or long enough to become invested and interested in moving on from just watching what's currently releasing and going back to older series as well. And that's my top 5 queer anime and manga, but can I quickly go off script and talk about some honorable mentions? Here's 5 more anime and manga that I really, really like, that I consider queer, but for one reason or another felt a little out of place on a definitive list of queer anime and manga recs. First up, we have Kaze Toki no Uta. Content warnings galore for this one if you've not heard of it. It's another story primarily about abuse and trying to overcome abuse, and it does get pretty explicit, so I'll say that. This is one of the pioneering works in the yaoi or BL genre, and it is very... Okay, so the thing about early yaoi, like 70s yaoi, is that oftentimes these male characters were supposed to be stand-ins for the female readers, and it's like gay Yuri. Can I throw up the meme and make it make sense? You could read these stories as being about boys, or you can read them as being about girls, and it's this like fluidity that I think adds to its queerness. It's also just one of my favorite manga. The art's really pretty, the story's really sad and depressing, and for some reason I like that kind of thing. And also 70s shoujo just slaps. I don't know what they put in that artwork, but I'm eating it up, as you will see from most of this, like half of this honorable mentions list. Kaze Toki no Uta follows Serge, who is a transfer student at an all-boys boarding school in, I believe, France. And he ends up getting paired with Gilbert, who is the local promiscuous problem child. And throughout the series, they build a relationship together through mutual understanding and care. And Serge is like working to help Gilbert heal and get better. And Gilbert kind of goes on a self-destructive spiral like all of the time, and it's really tragic. But that's like the basic idea of what it is. Moving on from Kaze, we have Sasaki and Miyano. I think this is a pretty well-known BL anime and manga. It's a little bit newer, very, very cute. The basic premise is that you have one guy who is a fudanshi, meaning he is very into yaoi, and he ends up bonding over it with Sasaki, and they start bonding over this media, and then they end up like falling in love with each other, and it's really cute. So The Summer Hikaru Died is an anime and manga, well, the anime is not out yet, but it will be soon, that follows Yoshiki and Hikaru. If you can't tell from the title, Hikaru did die, and then he comes back wrong. Like it's his body, but it's not his soul, if that makes sense. He's like, the body is being occupied by some sort of like eldritch being, and Yoshiki knows this. He realizes this. He knows that something is off, but he is so, he had such a strong relationship with Hikaru that he's not ready to let go of yet, that he is willing to befriend this monster and maybe even pretend that it's Hikaru so he doesn't have to let Hikaru go. I've not read a ton of it yet, but ever since I like heard what it was about and saw the first anime trailer, I said, I need to read this entire thing. I need to devour this story. Next on the list is Dear Brother. Dear Brother is messy. It's Dear Brother is considered a very early Yuri work, but it's not Yuri in the sense that the Green Yuri manga is Yuri. Dear Brother basically follows a girl as she attends this all-girls school and is writing letters to someone who she looks up to, basically. The cast is almost entirely female. It has a lot of those princely women archetypes. And since the cast is at an all-female school, there tends to be, I guess, more homoeroticism present amongst the student body because, like, who else are you gonna have a crush on? But Dear Brother also while we do see characters that have very explicit crushes on other women, and they even confess these crushes to other women, it's presented in a way that would be called a Class S relationship, which is kind of the idea that romantic friendships between girls is like a thing that happens, but it's also this like sense of queerness is a temporary thing that girls eventually grow out of, and you see it a lot in anime and manga. It's even in the Rose of Versailles as well, and a lot of these early Yuri works can kind of be chalked up as that. And also, like, this comes up a lot with like princely women anime archetypes. Even in like Ouran High School Host Club, this is somewhat present. Dear Brother is definitely like more in that realm, but that does not take away from the queerness present in the story, I would say. The anime came out in the 90s, but the manga was written in the 70s. So that explains the art style and the fashion. But I think it's good, but it's one of those like kind of trashy, very melodramatic shoujo series. And sometimes that's fun. We can love a little bit of that as a treat. Lastly, as my last honorable mention is The Rose of Versailles. Also, this was created by the same creator as Dear Brother. Rose of Versailles, I think, is a pretty well-known like historical shoujo. It basically follows the life of Oscar through, I guess, the early stages and the beginnings of the French Revolution. It is about the French Revolution and Marie Antoinette. However, Rose of Versailles has been very influential within queer manga, and it does showcase that same like childish, homoerotic type of friendship that's like platonic but not platonic pretty early on in the series between Rosalie and Oscar. Also, Oscar was born as a woman but raised as a man for like, I guess, social reasons. And so because of that, Oscar has this very unique relationship with gender and this internal struggle of figuring out like what gender means to her, and that resonates a lot with LGBT readers. And Rose of Versailles, at the end of the day, may be a straight story, but it is the gayest straight story you will ever read. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone who has not read or watched The Rose of Versailles. I promise it makes sense. But that is why it's an honorable mention, because it's in that like weird area of it is very queer, but at the same time it's not. Anyway, that's been my favorite queer anime and manga. I tried not to do a lot of like BL in this, specifically because I know there's discourse about BL counting as queer because it is generally assumed that it's written by women for women. But that kind of excludes like this whole discussion of, well, a lot of BL is actually like exploring sapphic relationships just under the guise of men because, you know, women aren't allowed to experience sexuality. And also a lot of people that are into BL have ended up coming out as not cisgendered, which includes them in the LGBT community. But that discussion is not exactly what I wanted to make this video about. But that was just explaining why there was not a lot of BL, even though that definitely counts as gay manga and anime. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a good June, a good Pride Month. Thank you guys so much for watching me ramble about some of my favorite anime and manga. Let me know if you enjoyed this, like, I guess, recommendation style, and we could possibly make more. I've been thinking about making a video like this for anime and manga that you might like if you like Black Butler, just things like that. But I haven't done it. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next video, whatever that may be. It's probably Dragon Age related, if we're gonna be so real. That's it for me. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye!